Okay, I want to get into the sermon today, and it is about joy, and I was told this was from Scott, but at least somebody left me an almond joy up here. They don't know that I actually prefer Mounds. This will still give me some joy, but dark chocolate would have made me even more joyful. That's fine, though. No one ever remembers Mounds, a sad little brother to almond joy. Any of you watch Winnie the Pooh or read Winnie the Pooh stories when you were young? Anybody raise your hands? Okay. I mean, don't raise your hands unless you have seen Winnie the Pooh. I just need a feel, okay? Now, everybody just raise your hands for practice because you know I like to do this. Okay. Good. Okay. I saw many of you did not raise your hands, so we're off to a bad start. I loved Winnie the Pooh. Truly, I loved it. I loved the show, loved the books. I still have the books in my kids' little library in the bedroom upstairs, and occasionally we'll read a Winnie the Pooh story. And I always thought, my whole life, especially after I was diagnosed with ADHD as a child and knew I was going to be hyper and things, I thought I would be like Tigger. And as I've grown older, I am definitely more like Eeyore. And that's what this sermon is all about. How does Eeyore become Tigger? Not that Eeyore needs to become Tigger. Eeyore is his own person, I understand. And this isn't a contemplation of mental health disorders and depression and anxiety. Those are big, big issues that we have talked about from the pulpit and we will talk about again. But today is a more general sense of outlook and perspective on life. So let's leave mental disorders off the table for this conversation and just think about our perspective, just the way we look at the world. If you ask my wife, I am a pessimist. If you ask my kids, I yell a lot. Which is kind of the same thing. I can't enjoy the fun and silliness of my children's childlike joy because I am too serious all the time. I am worried about what will go wrong, what will happen. I see the glass is half empty, or I'm asking what's in that glass. Don't drink that. Please don't drink that. That's kind of a joke, but my kids have been playing with dirt water out on the playground a lot lately. So I really have been yelling, don't drink that. Don't touch that. They usually just spill it on their clothes. I don't know. All of this whole sermon from this point on is one big exercise in hypocrisy, and I want to be honest about that because I'm not the most joyful person. I drink a lot of coffee, so I have joyful jitters, but it's not real. Like it's just my body reacting to caffeine. I'm not actually that fun. In fact, I'm sometimes a bit of a sourpuss. But at least I'm honest, and that's worth something. Denny Coburn, who was the preacher who helped start this church 50-something years ago, and he's still living, but he said, if you're happy, please notify your face. And I've always loved that. That's one of my favorite Dennyisms. It's one of the things I like to quote. I've heard it from a few people here, so I know he must have really said that a lot. So I want to do something before we even get into the sermon. Would you just practice smiling? Just everybody right now, smile. Some of you are like, I don't do this. I don't know what that's like, okay? Try it. Just smile. Just smile for a moment. Come on. Just for me to feel good to see all of you smiling. Because normally you don't. Not when I'm up here. Okay. How do you feel? Did it make you feel better? Isn't that incredible? How many of you feel tired? It took all your energy just to do that little smile. James, we might say is Jacob, the half-brother of Jesus. The original manuscripts say Jacob, but we translated James. None of this matters. Why do I tell you these useless facts? This guy who wrote a letter in the Bible that I'm sure you care about, he said in chapter 1, verses 2 through 4, that we should count it all joy, my brothers and sisters, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. Let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. So count everything as joy, even the bad stuff, because it produces in you something great, which sounds great. That's, bumper sticker worthy, but it's hard to live out. How do you count it all joy? And then I turn to Hebrews, the letter to the Hebrews. This passage is a little bit longer. Chapter 12, verses 1 through 15. This is our main text for today. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, now he's talking about the hall of faith. You don't know this, but Hebrews 11, he's just gone through a litany of people in the Bible who have demonstrated great faith. They've believed in things they haven't yet seen. They trusted God when all the circumstances said otherwise, and they were faithful to the bitter end. And he says, if these people have been cheering you on, and now they're waiting at the finish line for you, are you going to quit? Are you going to give up? Will you lose your joy when all these people are waiting for you at the finish line? And he says, then we need to lay aside every weight, every sin that clings so closely. Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross. Until I read Hebrews 12, I never associated the word joy with the word cross. I would guess you wouldn't have either. But for the joy set before him, he endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him, that is Jesus, consider him, who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted. In your struggle against sin, you have not resisted to the point of shedding your blood. You've forgotten the exhortation, which is a fancy word for sermon. You forgot that sermon that addressed you as sons when God said, my son, or for some of you, my daughter. Do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord. Don't be weary when reproved by God. For the Lord disciplines the one he loves and chastises every child whom he receives. It is for discipline that you have to endure. God is treating you as children. For what child is there whom this father does not discipline? If you're left without discipline, in which all have participated, then you're illegitimate children and not sons or daughters. Besides this, we've had earthly fathers who disciplined us, and we respected them. Shall we not much more be subject to the Father of spirits and live? For they disciplined us for a short time, as it seemed best to them, but God disciplines us for our good, that we may share in his own holiness. For the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant. You know that, don't you? No one likes being punished, right? He says in the moment, it's painful, it's not fun, it's not pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. Therefore, lift your drooping hands and strengthen your weak knees. Make straight paths for your feet, so that what is lame may not be put out of joint, but rather be healed. Strive for peace with everyone, and for the holiness without which no one will see the Lord. See to it that no one fails to obtain the grace of God, that no root of bitterness, which is a Hebrew term that he quotes, no root of bitterness springs up and causes trouble, because by it many would become defiled. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. It's a tough letter, Hebrews. It's hard to even read just a portion of it because it all fits together so neatly as one package deal. Really, a lot of the Bible works like that, so be careful when you break it down too small. But in context, the author of the letter to the Hebrew church, or to the Hebrews in the church, to be more generic, I think he was trying to say to a church that was beginning to lose steam, to droop. He says, your knees are weak, your hands are drooping. I'll tell you what I think it looks like. Have you been to the campus at the University of Rio Grande? There are a bunch of college kids there who have paid their parents' hard-earned money, or maybe they're paying for it, or maybe scholarships are paying for it, but they're paying to be there, right? Some way, somehow, somebody's paying for them to be there, and you would think half of those people are miserable. And Rio's a nice place. It's not because of the college. You go to any campus, go to OSU, go wherever. You'll see a bunch of miserable 19, 20, 21-year-olds with their hands drooping and their knees weak, trudging along to classes that they're paying to go to that they don't even want to go to get a job they don't really want to have to work, to pay bills they don't want to pay, to live a long life of sorrow and tragedy and then die. And I don't know what they're so sad about. And that really is, I know I'm kind of kidding, but that really inspired this sermon. Because the other day I was walking on the campus and I just saw face after face staring at the ground, so sad. And I was saying, good morning, hi, hello, hi. And they just all went, it gave me this like, what is wrong with you? Why are you smiling? It was sad. It was truly sad. And I thought, these people are in the prime of life, and they're miserable. And then it hit me, that's what it's like when I go to Walmart too. That's what it's like pretty much anywhere I go anymore. People are so sad. People are so bitter. Everywhere I go, people are so bitter. And then I remembered these words, and I thought of Tigger and Eeyore. And I felt deeply convicted because I looked in the mirror and I wasn't smiling either. When I am, it's usually faking it till I make it. What's wrong with us? We're all on this common quest for joy. We look to career success. We look to healthy finances. Maybe we look to a healthy, growing family or some kind of relationship in our life. Whatever it is, we try to find this thing that we think will bring us lasting joy. And we look for it in the wrong places. So I had to start asking questions. Where does my joy come from? Where do I really find joy? Is it in the externals? Is it in the circumstances of my life? Can joy even be found in those things? I think maybe momentarily we might find joy in election results, or a booming economy and cheaper gas prices, or certain achievements at our job, or having a good and healthy relationship at home, or our kids succeeding in life, or our grandchildren succeeding. We might find momentary joy in those things. I think that's possible. But I think if we elevate them too highly, it becomes what ancient peoples called idolatry. Now, you think of idols as sticks and stones in pagan temples, but those sticks and stones represented success and financial stability. Do you know what they worshiped? They worshiped the gods of fertility who allowed them to have healthy, beautiful children, which is really the same thing many of you worship. They worshiped good harvest seasons, which was the equivalent of a nice nest egg in the bank. They worship the same stuff that people still worship. We just have more clever ways of disguising it. It's idolatry, and it's fleeting, so transient, so given to change, to decay, to failure. Any trust in anything other than God is in some way idolatry, and so it leaves us wanting. It saps the little bits of joy that it pretends to give us, and it leaves us truly dissatisfied. So no, to answer the first question, I don't think joy can be found in external success. So then what about in comparison? You know, sometimes I see a homeless person on the side of the road, I hand them $20, and I feel better about myself, at least for a few minutes. At least I'm not in that guy's shoes. At least I'm not sitting under a bridge like that lady and her dog. And I'm grateful for a moment, just to compare. But then I pass a brand new Suburban, and I think their kids must have so much leg room in there. And then I realize it's a retired individual with no children. And I think, what are they doing in that Suburban? But I get it. I want one, and I won't have one until I'm retired either. Maybe then I could afford one. I'm joking, but you get the point. Comparison is a thief of joy. It doesn't bring me joy. It might bring me arrogance in moments that make me feel better about myself, and then it deeply humbles me when I look at the next guy over who's doing better. My kid succeeds, and then someone else's kid succeeds a little better than they did. And now I'm frustrated. I succeed, and then someone else succeeds a little better than I did, and then I'm frustrated. Comparison, it doesn't work. It doesn't help, that's for sure. Never has. I don't know why I think it suddenly will. Comparison is the thief of joy. When you compare yourselves to others, you'll never have satisfaction in your own journey. You won't really ever appreciate you for you, because all you know of you is what you are not in comparison to others. That's a strange way to live, and we've created a whole realm of social media that creates space for that just allows us to constantly live a life of comparison. And most of the time, comparison to unrealistic captioned pictures that aren't really life. It's just the highlight reel. It's bogus. Even when we do compare, we're comparing ourselves to something fake. I remember when I was young, some old person said to me, "Don't forget everybody else is just as miserable as you. They're better at hiding it." And I thought, that's sage wisdom, and also I feel sorry for that person, because that's pretty depressing. The opposite of the opposite of joy is bitterness. That's what we read in Hebrews. Don't let that root of bitterness take hold, because it will defile you. It will take what is holy, the opposite of holy, at least in the Old Hebrew, holy and defilement. Those are the opposites, right? Holiness is being set apart as special to God. Being defiled is rejecting God and disappointing God and forsaking what is good and beautiful. So the holiness God is creating in you, when you compare yourself to others and grow bitter, it's defiled. It's ruined. Whatever good there was becomes ruined by comparison. So then I wondered, maybe joy is just found in those moments of happiness, those fleeting feelings of joy. And I know everyone wants to argue that joy and happiness are two different things, but the biblical word is the same for each. So in English, yes, we could say joy is somehow like a deeper feeling and happiness is just the fleeting feeling, whatever. Semantics. But in Greek, it's the same word, so we don't have to play semantics. Joy, happiness, same thing, right? I get it every once in a while. Joy can be found in those fleeting feelings, but just like external factors, the stuff on the inside of me changes too. I can't control my circumstances, but I can't control my inner life either. I can practice meditation and prayer and quiet solitude and all these good disciplines of the spiritual life, and I can begin to master my emotions, but I never truly master them. I will inevitably feel disappointed in myself, feel sad for myself, feel angry with others, feel frustrated with the world around me, disillusioned, depressed, and angry even. I can't control all of that, and it's too great a weight for me to try to bear on my own. And so feelings is not going to be the source of my joy, because they too are fleeting and ever-changing and uncontrollable. Joy is found not in feelings, but somehow in focus, in perspective. That's what I'm coming to believe. It's about where we set our attention, where we point our faith. Joy is found when we focus on what truly matters, and not just generically on Christ, but on the work of Christ, on the things he taught us, the things he demonstrated for us. I think that trying to have joy has been the greatest source of my life's failures. And I say that boldly. I think my pursuit of joy, my attempt to try to be happy all the time and feel good about my life, has led to my greatest failures in life. Because you can't just have joy. You don't seize it. You don't take it. You don't get it somehow. That's not how joy works. You find it along the journey. The failure, I believe, the failure of the modern dream really is the endless striving for success and happiness. That's what's wrong with America, is that people thought the American dream would lead everyone to success and happiness. And then when it doesn't, and when seeking success and happiness leads to depression and anxiety, I don't know what to do. So then postmodern deconstruction comes in and tears it all apart. And now we have a generation left with the broken down pieces, trying to figure out what to build next. But if they don't build it on a solid foundation, it too will fall apart. That's the problem. It's that it's where we build to begin with. It's the source, the foundation, the perspective itself. I really think people are beginning to see that joy isn't about arriving, it's about the journey. Really and truly. Joy is found on the journey. You probably don't know Rabindranath Tagore, but if you do, he's a Bengali poet, he's famous, and the first Asian Nobel Peace Prize winner. And he won a Nobel Prize for literature. He wrote beautiful essays and poems, and he also did like visual art, and he did all kinds of stuff. But he was not technically a Christian. He was part of a strange denomination of Hinduism that followed the teachings of Jesus. None of that matters. He has this quote that I love, even though he's not, a Protestant Christian. He has this beautiful quote. He said, "I slept and I dreamt that life was joy. Then I awoke and I saw that life was service. And then I acted, and behold, service was joy." I'll read it again. "I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke, and I learned that life was service. So I acted, and behold, service was joy." The way to joy is through service. It's not my circumstances or my inner feelings. It's not a goal that I need to reach or attain. It's not found through comparing myself to others and trying to feel better about my life. It is discovered along the journey of service, of loving God and loving neighbor. Jesus gave us the key to joy. We just keep trying to unlock the wrong locks. The way to joy is through service, like picking up trash after a green fall carnival, or compassionately listening to someone vent about their boss and putting your arm around their shoulder, or pretending you're thrilled to help someone move couches out of their house because they're moving again. I think we know service is not glamorous. There really isn't usually a reward of any kind when you serve, at least not when you serve well. There's no applause, there's no trophy, there's a lot of times not even a thank you, although I've been blessed with a lot of gratitude when I have tried to serve. Sometimes you don't even get that. But the longer I follow Jesus, I wonder if the real power of service is that it forces us to get over ourselves for just a second. Because joy isn't going to knock on the door while you're sitting around complaining that life isn't as great as you imagined it. No, it seems like joy sneaks in when we're too busy helping someone else to even notice. It's like joy has a really weird sense of humor, maybe like God. It waits until we're up to our elbows in the messiness of life, doing something mundane, and then it just sort of shows up. Suddenly you're stacking chairs after some event or fixing someone's broken fence next door, and you realize you're kind of happy, and you don't really know why or how. And it's not because what you're doing is fun, it's because you have tapped into something bigger than you. It's because you've learned what loving looks like. Loving God and loving neighbor, serving others. It's not because service is so fun. It's because you have accessed the divine, a God who is love for others, a God who always serves the other. And that God is the source of joy. I don't know why we think we'll find it outside of him. So maybe Tagore was onto something. Maybe joy isn't the reward. Maybe joy is found in the work itself. Not because the service is a blast, not because the work is fun, but because it reminds us we're not the center of the universe. And honestly, that is a relief, isn't it? Let me tell you again, you are not the center of the universe. I need to be reminded of that. You don't have to carry all of this weight. You don't have to. Life is a lot lighter when we stop holding on to every little thing that doesn't go the way we want it to. Service lets us do that. It clears space in our hearts so that joy can move in, even if it just stays for a little while. It takes root. It begins to grow. And the more we serve, the more joy we find. So I wonder if I've just been going about this all the wrong way. My whole life. All I ever remember Eeyore complaining about is his own sorry life. His tail keeps falling off, and he keeps saying, well, big surprise there, right? It's all he ever does is complain about how his life isn't what he hoped it would be. That's perspective. Meanwhile, Tigger is busy bouncing around, helping little Roo to help all of his neighbors and do these acts of kindness and things he's not big enough to do, and he helps Piglet to achieve his dreams and helps Winnie the Pooh on his honey hunt, and all these beautiful ways that he serves others, and he's just full of contagious joy. I thought I would just become Tigger by thinking I'll become like Tigger. I'll just be a happy guy. And I tried so hard to be happy that I became miserable. And I'm learning if I just love people, if I just try harder to help people, that I'm so much happier. I don't think Tigger ever asks if he's happy. It's certainly not recorded in the books. He doesn't say, am I happy? Am I really happy in my life? Because that question is self-defeating. Rather, he just lives and loves and serves and smiles and bounces around, and the next thing you know, his contagious, joyful energy is abounding. I want to be like that. Maybe that would work for me, like it works for Tigger. Maybe it would work for you. I believe it worked for Jesus. Would you stand with me as we close? If you remember, the Bible said, for the joy set before him, Jesus endured the cross. He wasn't thinking of himself at all. Jesus would have never endured the cross if he asked the question, will it make me happy? Will it bring me joy? Do I like crucifixion? Do I like being killed? The obvious answer to any of those questions is absolutely not. And yet the greatest joy ever experienced by humanity is unlocked through the crucifixion of Jesus. That is a mystery worth exploring in your life. How do I gain joy? How do I regain joy that maybe I've lost? Well, stop trying to grab it and find it and simply serve. Learn the secret of loving others, and perhaps your joy will abound. I want to close with one of my favorite verses in the Bible. It's probably some of your favorites too. It's in Philippians chapter 4. Just a few verses. Rejoice, and rejoice means have joy. So rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say, have joy. Let your gentleness be known to everyone. The Lord is at hand. Don't be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. A peace that is beyond understanding. That's what we find at this table every Lord's Day. Peace achieved through one who, for the joy set before him, endured the cross for you. And I used to think he did that so that I could have peace. But now I understand he also did it so I would know how to find joy by enduring whatever cross lays before me. And so he invites us today when we come to the table to take up our cross and to carry it with gladness.